Wow. Hi, everyone. What a turnout. Great. Thank you all for coming. I'm Roland Vogel. I'm Executive Director of CodeX, the Stanford Center for Legal Informatics. CodeX is a joint center between the Stanford Computer Science Department and the Stanford Law School. Our mission is to use information technology and research-developed technologies that make the legal system more efficient for all the stakeholders in the legal system. So obviously, something, as Harry just pointed out, like 5 years ago, it wouldn't have been possible, to fill a room with so many people, talking about legal tech issues. So there's really an exciting wave of innovation happening in legal technology that really is promising to bring some real change. And much of that innovation is driven by visionary entrepreneurs and their companies that are showing us new ways of doing things in this industry that has been quite resistant to change thus far. So it's really wonderful to have some of the most interesting companies represented on this panel here today for this CodeX Shark Tank event. And so it's promising to be a great evening. So we have a panel of 8 legal tech innovators who will be demoing their products and discuss with us some of the trends in the legal industry and also some nuts and bolts of building a legal tech business. So we have with us Nat Gannon, who's the co-founder and CEO of eBrevia. Then to his left, we have Jake Heller, who's the co-founder and CEO of Casetext. And then, well, we have Tony Lai, who's the founder and CEO of LawGives. Then Daniel Lewis, who's the CEO and founder of Ravel Law. Then Ben Longoria, who's the founder and CEO of Wizdocs. Julia Shapiro, co-founder and CEO of Hire and Esquire. And then we have Nicole Shanahan, who's the CEO of Clear Access IP and our new CodeX fellow. And then we have Mary Jutten, who is the founder and CEO of Traklight. So before we go to our entrepreneurs, we have Owen Bird, who's the chief evangelist and general counsel of Lex Machina, which was actually the first spin-off of Stanford Law School. Share a few words of wisdom about their journey. And just before I turn it over to Owen, just a big thank you to Mary. And also Jules from Hire and Esquire. They really have sparked this idea for this event, and we're really the driving force behind it. So thank you very much. So with that brief introduction, Owen, I turn it over to you.
Roland, thank you, and thank you to everyone here for making the time to attend this important event. I'm intimidated for a couple of reasons. Number one, these are all CEO founders, and I'm not. Our CEO, Josh Becker, who is himself not our founder, wanted to be here. Unfortunately, he's got a wedding, though it's in Bermuda, so I don't feel too sorry for him. So I'll just have to do. The other reason I'm intimidated is that, as Roland mentioned, Lex Machina was founded here as a public interest project of Stanford Law School. And there are people in this room who were there at the time, and I've only absorbed the founding mythology secondhand. So if I make any mistakes in describing it, I know that there are people like Roland and others in this room who can correct me. Lex Machina has an unusual founding story for a legal tech venture because we didn't start as a venture-backed private startup. We started as a public interest project here. Mark Lemley, Professor Mark Lemley here at the law school, according to the mythology, was having lunch with Bruce Sewell, who was then the GC of Intel, now the GC of Apple. And Bruce said to Mark, "Tell me your 4 best ideas, maybe I'll fund one of them." Mark said, "I have one." He said, "What's that?" He says, "I want to create an electronic set of patent litigation events and outcomes in order to mine the data to improve policy making and improve academic study and improve the practice of patent litigation." Bruce thought that was terrific. And so Mark Lemley went out and recruited Joshua Walker, who's an attorney, and George Gregory, who's an engineer. And they formed the Intellectual Property Litigation Clearinghouse here as a project of the program in law science and technology, with the ambition to bring openness and transparency to IP law. Mark and Josh and George then went over to the engineering building and spoke with Andrew Ng and Chris Manning here on the Stanford faculty, and the two are leaders in the realms of natural language processing and machine learning. And Andrew and Chris turned them down cold. Said, no, we don't have time for this. This doesn't sound big enough. They wouldn't give up. And eventually they wore them down and recruited them. And so the technology that still drives our company today was developed here at Stanford through this alliance between the computer science department and the law school. They set out to obtain and code and clean and tag every IP case filed in federal court since January 1, 2000. And to do so, they raised about $3 million, not in venture funding, but in donations to Stanford Law School, led by Intel, but also including Apple, Cisco, Genentech, Microsoft, Oracle, Qualcomm, SAP, some big law firms, including Fenwick & West, Heller Ehrman, Orrick, Winston & Strawn, and some others, including the Kauffman Foundation, and Stanford Law School put some dollars in the pot as well. So with that money and with that talent, they went and coded these cases, and the IPLC website went live in 2008, in December. And within 9 months, over 5,000 users had flocked to the site because it was offering something that had never been offered before, which was legal analytics, legal informatics, a way to crunch data about a legal practice area as opposed to through traditional research looking for top-down controlling authority. And academics, public officials in the executive and judicial branches, nonprofits, all began using the site. But interestingly, so did lawyers at private law firms and corporate law departments. And as so often happens at Stanford, someone said, I think there's a business here. Interesting for us lawyers, it was the first one to emerge from this law school, although there have now been a number of them, including colleagues here tonight. But the people involved agreed, yes, we ought to try this as a technology venture. And so at the end of 2009, early 2010, the IPLC era of our project ended and the new Lex Machina era began. And we emerged from Stanford with a double bottom line mission. We wanted to do good and do well. We are venture backed, we're mercenary, we're here to make a good living. But we're also here to serve the public good, and we continue to do so actually through a public interest program that enables .edu and .gov and .org users to access our product for free. When we spun out from Stanford, there was an initial $500,000 in sort of almost friends and family, kind of a pre-seed round to get the company started. And Josh Walker and George Gregory, who went with the project, led it through its growth in 2010 and on into 2011, signed up a number of law firm and corporate law department paying subscribers, which was at the time exciting because no one knew if they could persuade these law firms and companies to pay for the service. And smartly, from the perspective of growing a venture, they also pitched their ability to do very sophisticated services projects for big tech companies around patent litigation, benchmarking how peer companies behave in litigation, or doing evaluation of patent portfolio value through the prism of litigation data. And the dollars that those big services engagements brought in enabled the company to supplement what it was making through subscription and to continue to grow. Around the summer of 2011, it became apparent that Josh Walker, the attorney side of the co-founding team, would eventually be returning to private practice. And in fact, he's now back at Simpson with an IP practice where he, of course, uses Lex Machina every day. And so Josh Becker was recruited. Josh has a dual JD MBA from Stanford, had never practiced, but had worked in technology and in this valley in both VC and operational roles, and was known to board members of Lex Machina. So Josh got hired as the CEO, and then he called me, and he said, I want you to come to this venture with me. And I said, why? He said, because you're the only person I know who's both a lawyer and a data geek. And I had practiced law around here for 20 years, but had also been involved in a number of entrepreneurial and service efforts that were all very data driven. So I was pretty used to applying data to new domains. So to apply it to my profession sort of made a lot of sense. And I said, Josh, I don't know the first thing about, I couldn't tell you the difference between a patent and a trademark. I don't know IP. He said, that's all right. You're not going to be an IP lawyer. You're going to be an analytics lawyer. I said, that I can do. So I joined, and at that time there were maybe 6 or 8 of us on the team, and we continued to grow the company. At the time, I did all the sales and marketing and customer success and take out the garbage and everything else that was needed. But we continued to not only grow our subscription base, but we also had some very significant attention-grabbing engagements that helped us grow our brand. In 2011, Congress passed the America Invents Act, which was the first major reform of patent law in 40 years. In that act, Congress instructed the GAO, the General Accountability Office, to do a study of the impact of non-practicing entities, or so-called patent trolls, on patent litigation in the US. Well, the GAO could have picked anyone they want. They could have gone with Lexis or Thomson Reuters or Bloomberg or who knows who, but they chose us. And so we produced that report, which obviously got a lot of attention, having been mandated by Congress, which kept us in the public eye. So through 2012, lots more rapid growth. Followed in around May or June of 2012, we raised a $2 million, we call it the seed round, since that original $500,000 we say was kind of friends and family. That was led by Exceed Capital, which is located locally and is led by Rob Siegel, who, among other things, is an instructor at Stanford's School of Business. And with that money, we were able to grow our team and grow our product. We added as our vice president of product, Carl Harris, who's a graduate of this law school and who had practiced some IP law, as well as was on the founding team of a marketing analytics company, so he's a coder. And he helped, and he then in turn added significant engineering oomph to our product team. We added a professional vice president of sales, since I didn't know what I was doing. I was just out saying, you really need this. And she had come from Thomson Reuters. We added my colleague, Jörg Rothenberg, who's our VP of marketing, who had expertise in marketing, because what did I know? I was just out talking about this stuff. And we added my colleague, Jeremy Mulder, on customer success after a while. So we grew our team to about 20 people and continued to sell to more and more law firms and companies. So fast forward, 2013, in the late spring, we were able to raise a $5 million A round. That was led by Cue Ball Capital, a very unusual group out of Boston who had the vision to see that applying analytics to the law was potentially a very big business. We outgrew our little offices in Palo Alto and moved to Menlo Park. Most importantly, we completely rebuilt the product. What we had inherited from Stanford and the IPLC was terrific, but in order to take it where we wanted it to go, required rewriting a lot of its infrastructure. So Carl and his team did that, and then Jörg helped us in October of 2013 relaunch, and at the time, we then rebranded as delivering legal analytics. And with the relaunch of that product and the relaunch of our brand, we were able to continue significant growth to where we are today. We've got over 30 people on the team. Our customer base includes 1/3 of the AmLaw 100 big firms, lots of boutiques and small firms, a significant percentage of big tech company corporate law departments. We're also making a big push in the pharma realm right now, but we've got lots of greenfield in front of us with companies in other industries from elsewhere in the country who we still want to serve. We continue to improve our core patent product. We recently released a section in it that's about pharmaceutical patent litigation. It's called ANDA litigation, that is enormously valuable to the brand and generic drug companies that play in that space. We are enriching the copyright and trademark case data that we brought with us from the IPLC to give it the same oomph that our patent product has. And most excitingly, we're now studying another half dozen other federal subject matter. And we intend in the next year to begin to provide legal analytics for other federal subjects. It'll be a while before we treat state subjects, just because we understand how to crawl PACER, the federal court system. But our goal is to bring analytics to all of the law. You know, I like to call it Moneyball for lawyers. And lawyers will continue to need to combine good legal research with good legal reasoning. But if that can be informed with data and analytics that can help move the needle in disputes and transactions, we think we will have fundamentally shaped and improved how law is practiced in this country. So that's the very short version. It feels a little, I mean, we think we're a scrappy little startup, but in this crowd, I guess we're grandpa. But we are very excited to be here with our colleagues in the legal tech startup space. And thank you, Roland, for allowing us to kick it off.
Thank you very much. Thank you. All right, thank you. So let's get to our panelists. I'm asking the panelists to just spend 2 minutes to introduce yourself and talk a little bit about the problem you've identified in a marketplace and how your company is addressing that problem, and perhaps also a little bit about the funding history of your company. So, Ned.
Sure. Well, thank you. So I'm Ned Gannon. I'm a corporate attorney by training, and a lot of what I had done, particularly as a junior associate, was conduct due diligence in mergers and acquisitions. So this really consisted of working within a large team of other junior associates and going into virtual data rooms to go through all of the target companies' customer contracts, employment agreements, leases, etc., to extract and summarize key provisions. It was a very time-consuming process. It was also expensive, with these juniors typically billing out at $300 to $500 an hour. It was inaccurate at times. If you think about that first or second year associate at 3 in the morning going through complex documents, it's easy for things to fall through the cracks. And my co-founder, a friend from law school, had a similar experience. So we thought maybe we could bring some technology to bear on the issue. We went through the technology transfer websites of the top 100 US research universities and came across some really sophisticated machine learning technology that Columbia University had successfully spun out for other applications and other industries. So we sponsored some research at Columbia, spun the company out of the university, and we are a Columbia portfolio company. So they own a small piece of equity in eBrevia. And essentially what our software does is it helps to allows attorneys to review contracts more accurately and efficiently by extracting key information based on their specifications. So our technology has applications for due diligence, as I said, contract management, document drafting. We have users from very small firms to some of the largest firms in the world, as well as in-house legal departments. And we're one of 4 national winners in the Startup America demo competition. And we've raised $675,000 in financing to date. I'm happy to say we also now have commitments for another $1.5 million, and I'll be closing on that round this month. So thank you.
Congratulations.
Thank you.
All right, next, Jake, please.
Hi, I'm Jake Heller. I'm the CEO of Casetext. Casetext is a legal research company where lawyers can read cases, statutes, and regulations that are annotated by the entire legal community. As many of you know or will soon learn, as an associate at a big law firm doing litigation, you spend 30% of your time at least doing legal research. And as you'll also learn, legal research isn't just about reading cases and statutes. It's about the context that is around those cases and statutes. A summary of the case, has it been overturned, analysis of it to understand what it's really about and how it's evolved. Now, the way that the two big providers deal with that right now, Westlaw and LexisNexis, is they've hired an army of 10,000 people to add that analysis and add that information. But there are problems with that. The first is it's necessarily expensive. If you hire 10,000 people to do anything, it's going to cost a lot of money. And it's also not necessarily super high quality. These people they hire are not, peers who are also litigating in the area. They're editors for Westlaw and LexisNexis. So we took a different tack. What we do is we integrate the knowledge of the legal community into a legal research database so that the next time you read a case or a statute, you can see what judges have said about it, what law firms say about it, how professors in their blogs have summarized it. We essentially take all of the public's knowledge about cases and statutes and integrate it into the database you do research on. And currently, about 200,000 people use that public research tool every single month. Building on that success, we also have a tool geared towards big law firms. The founders of the company had experience at Ropes & Gray, Skadden, at Simpson Thacher, and we all had the same exact experience, which is, although it's really easy to find what the Westlaw editors say about a particular case, try finding out what the guy down the hall at your office, or God forbid, the person in the Hong Kong office, the Chicago office, has to say about the things you're working on. It's nearly impossible. So what we've done is we're able to have a private, secure platform within a law firm where we take the briefs, memos, sometimes even in analytical emails, integrate that into our system so that the next time you read a case, you not only see what other law firms and other professors say about it, but what the lawyers inside your firm have also analyzed and what parts have they analyzed, what are they talking about. So that's Casetext in a nutshell. You'll find out more about the video. Some of it is actually still in private, being developed inside the company. So you guys are the first people outside of Casetext to see it for the very first time, which I think is pretty cool. Happy to answer any questions about it during the panel, and my colleague Laura and I will be here after the presentation.
All right, thank you. Tony, take it away.
Hi, everyone. My name's Tony Light, and I'm CEO and co-founder of LawGives. I came over here from England. I was the son of Chinese immigrants to England, and came out to Stanford to study on the Law Science and Technology program, where I met my co-founder, Peter Gunz, sat right there. We both had a history in large corporate firms as well. And essentially, one of the big problems that we attached onto very early on was the issue that 4 out of 5 lower-income households here in the US who need legal help don't get any at all. We did a deep dive into a lot of the legal aid organizations around Silicon Valley, and with advice from Roland and the Dean, Dean Kramer at the time, they really pushed us towards looking at this as a larger systemic issue. How are lawyers finding rewarding work, and how are they getting matched up with the people who need them? This led us to a accelerator program here at Stanford called CodeX. We were actually on the team helping to set that up. And the big part of the experience that we got from setting that up was the incredible community that Stanford here and here in Silicon Valley there is, but also that we were able to build out through CodeX, and the social trust networks that get built when people are working around each other. They have peer support, they have mentorship, and they have the instant education and resources that they need to get things done. And this found its way into the product that we built with LawGives, which was this notion of a community. How can we build and allow lawyers to build their own communities in order to get the support that they need to find and do the rewarding work that they really want to do? Part of our journey involved also teaching a legal technology class here at Stanford, along with our advisor, Ron Dolan. And that really gave us this sort of broader survey of the burgeoning legal technology space, which really pushed us towards this notion of what is the way in which lawyers of tomorrow really fulfill their potential with technology. There's this huge generation of millennial lawyers who are really looking for a different way to practice. They're looking for rewarding work which really fulfills purpose around the way that they want to work. And this was certainly something that we found within our corporate law firms, but we're seeing that increasingly, I think, in this generation that's coming through. We're also really fortunate to be able to talk to a lot of senior lawyers, elders, who were talking to us about the way that they felt that their practice and their volunteering with pro bono organizations was just really hitting the tip of the iceberg. How could they scale their impact? How could they pass on their wisdom, pass on the things that they had learned, and pass on their relationships? How could they build a legacy? So these were all problems that we were looking to really target with the build out of our product at LawGives, and you'll see a little bit about that in our demo, and it's very focused around this notion of a community. Look forward to talking to you much more about it later on. Thank you.
Thank you, Tony. Daniel.
So I'm Daniel. I'm the co-founder and CEO of Ravel, and Ravel is a legal research and analytics platform. I am a 2012 graduate of Stanford, and I actually come from a family of lawyers. So both my parents are attorneys. My older brother's a lawyer, and now my younger brother just started this fall. So somebody called that a genetic defect, but it's probably why I'm sitting on this panel. I worked for a few years before law school, and when I ended up back in school and started looking at having to do research again, it became clear that the tools hadn't changed that much in the 10 or 15 years since I'd fooled around in my dad's firm. And the technologies hadn't evolved. The legal world was clearly left behind by a lot of really interesting developments. And so following in the footsteps of Lex Machina, I approached Mark Lemley and then made my way over to the computer science department and started meeting with professors who were doing data visualization, machine learning, data mining, and started working with some of their best students. And I knew it was working when Jeff here, the guy who was teaching data viz at the time, said, "Who the hell are these Ravel guys that keep stealing all my postdocs and TAs?" So I co-founded with a classmate, Nick, and the idea that we wanted to tackle is that legal information has become so much more expansive than it was even just 5 or 10 years ago, that it's nearly impossible for anybody to wrap their arms around it. And as Jake mentioned, that means that folks are spending 30% of their time doing research when really they could be doing higher value lawyering, writing and crafting arguments. And we wanted to put together a series of research tools and analytics that could help people identify key material faster, understand why it was important, and have data-driven insights into how to use it. So that no longer, as my dad knows everything about a district court judge that he argues in front of. He knows like what wine the guy likes and whether he hurt his knee running and what his dog's name is, but he couldn't really tell you how that judge has made a lot of decisions over the last 20 years of a career. And so by tapping into this information with machine learning and data visualization and natural language processing, we're surfacing those types of insights that can help people practice more efficiently and more thoroughly and feel more confident at the end of the process. So we are a 13-person company of software engineers and lawyers. We've raised $9.2 million in 2 rounds of funding, and we're based up in San Francisco.
Great. Thank you, Daniel. Ben, you're next.
Hi, I'm Ben Longoria, CEO and founder of Wizdocs. So like Ned, I feel like he was telling a little bit about my story. I still am an M&A attorney, and like Ned, I was sitting in my office managing a merger deal wondering, gosh, there must be a better way to do this. For those of you that don't know or have been involved in law, when you're handling any type of diligence on the corporate side, you're sometimes tasked with reviewing thousands of agreements. And as a senior attorney at a firm, I was tasked with managing all these people across different offices that were reviewing these agreements, and then manually taking their results of reviewing, and it could have been real estate leases, stock option grants, customer agreements, vendor agreements, and then manually reading through all of these summaries and then putting together issues lists for clients, or a disclosure schedule, or an issues matrix for the senior partner, and of course for the client. This would take hours and hours and hours of time. And the moment that I finished that work product, it would be outdated because the team was still reviewing more and more diligence. I decided that there had to be a better way. And I had a technology background. I was an undergrad here at Stanford. And decided, you know what, I can leverage technology to automate all of these things that I'm doing manually and spending hours and hours and hours of time doing it. At the same time, and a question that sometimes comes up is, but law firms charge on an hourly basis. Isn't it great that lawyers are inefficient and spend all these hours doing things they don't want to be doing? The answer is no, and because clients are getting savvy to it. And as billable rates go up, clients are saying, we're not paying those fees anymore. So I recognized that there was an opportunity to really leverage clients becoming more savvy and wanting to drive their billable rates down, and lawyers becoming really, really frustrated that they were spending all this time doing administrative work. And as an attorney, I graduated from Harvard, but I mean, from all schools, they would say, I went to Harvard Law School for this? This is crazy. Yeah, I went to Stanford Law School for this. So anyway, I founded a company, developed a prototype, and we launched in 2009. And I started pitching myself to law firms, to legal departments, saying, I went exactly through what you went through, and I know your pain points, and I know you're getting a lot of pressure from clients, and here's the solution to do it. So we developed an M&A platform where a lawyer can log in, and they can task manage and see exactly who's responsible for reviewing what document. And then, depending on the type of agreement or document being reviewed, our system will prompt attorneys with a checklist of items that they need to be checking for. And as they work through those checklists, they're asked supplemental, some questions, more questions or less questions. They log in their answers, and then what our system does is it assembles all of those results across all the different practice areas, across all the different attorneys, and automatically produces disclosure schedules and client issues reports. So something that would take me hours, days, sometimes weeks to complete is done automatically in a matter of seconds. So we were self-funded. So actually, I took advantage of being a lawyer and a programmer and was able to save a lot of money. We immediately got paying customers, and we used their money to invest back into the company and grow it organically from there.
That's great. It's probably nice not to have investors breathing down your neck.
It is so wonderful to not be accountable to anybody.
Great. Well, thank you very much, Ben. Julia.
Hi, my name is Julia Shapiro, and I founded Hire and Esquire not because I ever planned on being an entrepreneur or playing startup, but because I really hated staffing agencies. I graduated from law school, and in 2008, I ended up working as a contract attorney in a very busy commercial litigation department of a large law firm. And 2008 was a crazy time, if any of you remember. Law firms were dying, Wall Street was crashing, lawyers were really discontent with their lifestyle, and the use of contract attorneys was skyrocketing. And being in the contract world, I saw a flexible legal lifestyle and a freelance workforce as a panacea for many of these problems. Unfortunately, the way staffing agencies operated was standing in the way of this utopia that I saw. And I actually spoke with my mother, who was a Kelly girl in the summers during college doing secretarial work, and back slightly after the Mad Men era. And actually, staffing processes had not changed at all since then. So being of a certain generation, I, of course, saw a technology solution to cure all these problems. A couple of them were that the process was time-consuming and very expensive for law firms, and the attorneys, as a result, were dehumanized, stigmatized, and very much underpaid. So I envisioned this technology solution that was a network and a marketplace, and I was sure that somebody had already built it. So I spent a couple really intense days Googling and found that no one had built this yet and decided that I had to do it. So by late 2009, I had convinced a developer to work for equity and help build my lawyer utopia. And we launched an MVP in mid-2011. By late 2011, I was ready to leave my job at Pepper Hamilton after 3 years there as a contract attorney. And I had 6 months savings in my bank account and an invitation from my way too nice sister and brother-in-law to live in their 700 square foot apartment to stretch my savings a little further. Fortunately, I took them up on their offer because it was a lot more than 6 months before I would get a salary again. So we worked on the product, we built out the marketplace and the network, and then in late 2012, we realized we had to go after large law firm clients instead of small clients, and we had to raise money to really scale and take over the market. At that point, my co-founder, Jules, came on board. We got our first major law firm client in the summer of 2013, closed a seed round of $350,000 in early 2014. Since then, we've been building the team, our network's grown significantly, and we've had an uptick in business faster than expected And as a result, we are just about to close a pre-Series A $500,000 convertible note.
Congratulations.
Thank you.
All right, Nicole.
Hi, I'm the CEO and founder of Clear Access IP. Clear Access IP launched, you can go to the website, clearaccessip.com. It launched in April of 2014, but it was an idea I had brewing after spending about 8 years working in prosecution groups, and then another 2 years doing research on the policy issues surrounding patent troll litigation in the United States and the many issues with innovation that is causing. What I realized working for law firms is that what many of you probably are already aware of is the lowest possible bar for technology usually kind of passes, and it's a day-to-day thing, and there's not a lot of thirst for new products. And I was constantly the person asked to kind of manage the system, please, which involved managing clerks and secretaries and paralegals. And at one point, I called my office the revolving door of crying clerks, because patent docketing is so stressful when you get it wrong, because it causes huge problems for the law firm and million-dollar malpractice suits. So, you know, I never thought of myself as a technologist, but more of a, I guess, someone who put bandages on existing technologies. And I kept shopping and looking for good docketing systems and found none that I really felt good about. And, you know, I'm the same age as Mark Zuckerberg and grew up with Facebook, and I'm like, why can't it look like that? You know, why can't it be easy like that? And so I went to law school, and I couldn't stop thinking that we could make it look like that and make it feel like that. And so I designed and built Clear Access IP. It's an automated docketing system for patents, and we work with a very, very good USPTO pair API. I've turned all of the MPEP into actionable logic and code, and it runs in real time. And so all of the cumbersome efforts that clerks used to have to put in to making sure the dates were correct, titles were correct, and all of that manual labor that no one loves doing. I mean, to liberate their time to do more meaningful work, for me, was a big motivator. And then, you know, on the other side of things, once you have that foundation, there's other potentials. And so kind of secondary to my goal is to liberate data in a way that might solve the MPE problem.
All right. Thank you, Nicole. Mary.
Hi, I'm Mary Jetton, and I'm the founder and CEO of Traklight. And unlike most of the people on the panel, I had a 25-year, sort of like Owen, a 25-year business career before I went back to law school, and I was taking a class that was a JD MBA class on managing intellectual, this is really awkward, managing intellectual property. And what I was hearing about were these horror stories about entrepreneurs having problems, making sure they own their intellectual property, inadvertently disclosing it. I'm thinking, this is crazy. Why isn't this more common knowledge amongst the entrepreneurs? And we got an assignment which was an intellectual property assignment. And back in the 80s when I was an accountant, we had all kinds of technology in the late 80s, early 90s. And I thought there's got to be an IP audit automated program, much like some of the other folks on the panel. And I went out there on Google, and there was not. And like Julia, afterwards I spent about a weekend's worth of going around after I did my assignment, thinking there should be something like a TurboTax where somebody who knows nothing about intellectual property can walk through, figure out what their potential intellectual property is, and then make sure that they are warned about some of their mistakes. So I didn't even really truly realize that I was creating something that would be legal technology. This was 2010. We also did a bunch of market research while I finished my law degree, but I never wrote the bar. I went and worked for another software company. And when I came up with the idea and got market research done, we were told, oh, you should have something in the cloud, something that's, and I was like, had to go home. What is the cloud? Because I was in law school. I didn't know. What are they talking about? This is fall 2010. So we came up with something that would be focused on the entrepreneurs, The only challenge is that entrepreneurs really don't want to spend money. So then we've realized that what we've done is created an automatic client intake process for attorneys where they can get to, as Daniel mentioned, the very high-value legal work. And very quickly, on the funding side, we were bootstrapped, self-funded, bootstrapped. We did some consulting in order to get ourselves to a bank line. And then we raised $350,000 this summer in an angel round.
All right, thank you. I know everyone's wondering now how Mary started her business career at age 5. 25 years in business before law. So, okay, well, we're about to go to our video demos, but before we do that, I'm asking the panelists to just describe for 30 seconds, who they view as their main competitors. So maybe Ned, do you want to go first?
Sure. So, yeah, I would say the transactional space is a lot less crowded in terms of legal tech than you'd find in maybe e-discovery. There's a few other companies working in contract analytics and applying machine learning technology. There's a Canadian startup focused on due diligence specifically. A couple other folks more in the contract management space. And then I'd say, in terms of indirect competitors, you might even consider legal process outsourcers to potentially be indirect competitors. They're obviously still using manual review, but it's at a significantly lower rate than associates.
All right, thank you.
Our competitors mostly are Westlaw, LexisNexis, and also Bloomberg Law to some degree. All the legal research tools that you guys have probably, all the students here probably got like ingrained in your heads to use since like day one. They're also some of our competitors owned by the same companies, but they're the knowledge management side of what happens at firms. The way to discover legal work product inside firms through tools like WestKM are also people we have kind of in our target sites because they. We think that we can provide a better solution to both by combining the two in a lot of ways.
Great, thanks.
It's an interesting question to ask about competitors because it sort of suggests a sort of finite market. I think the legal system is interesting in being much, much more than just a market. Certainly when we went to law school, we weren't necessarily just looking about making a whole bunch of money. We were looking, many of us, I think, about how law acts as this fundamental source code for the society that we want to see. Certainly, law it's about rights, it's about justice, it's about democratizing access to opportunities and democratizing access to success. And I think for lawyers themselves, they're looking at this whole market, this whole profession, with a little trepidation. And so I think the competitor that we're really sort of targeting is the specter of a legal industry, of a legal profession that is just going downhill. We believe that the legal profession actually has a lot of legs. We believe that lawyers, given the right tools and technologies, can actually make a huge impact in the world in terms of not just providing that level of advice, but also hacking at this source code for society. So, I look at the people who are sat here at this table, and I'm frankly really honored. Some might say they're competitors, but I think we're compatriots. I think we're on this journey together, sailing in sort of in this sort of the midst of this fog, and yet we can sort of see these lights through the fog, and we sort of know that okay, we're going in the right direction. And some of us may sink along the way, but we'll at the end of the day, we're going to find this new world.
Thank you, Tony. All right, Daniel, now match that.
I won't even try. To a certain extent, our competitors are Westlaw and Lexis, and to a different extent, they are not competitors in the legal analytics world that we're sort of following along, that Lex Machina is forging ahead into. So there's very traditional research, and then there's a whole new suite of data-driven analytics that Westlaw and Lexis aren't really in the business of.
I would say our biggest competitors are the attorneys themselves, attorneys that don't realize that they need to change and embrace technology. And also, we market and sell to large law firms. So sometimes we will get, oh, but maybe our IT department can build it better or something, or maybe our IT department can do this. which they can't, and ultimately they fail. So many of those, they come back to saying, yes, we'd like to license your software. So those, I think, are for us the biggest competitors. We don't really have any kind of commercial folks out there who are in our space.
Our competitors are traditional brick-and-mortar staffing agencies like Adecco Group, Kelly Law, Hudson. Traditional brick-and-mortar staffing agencies with fancier branding like Axiom and a lot of the little boutiques that have shot up and tend to cater to corporate clients. We are the first to market technology company, and we are automating and applying marketplace dynamics to staffing, and the goal is to completely disintermediate the brick-and-mortar staffing agency.
There you go. Nicole.
Patent docketing doesn't have, not that many new players, but CPI has released an auto feature, which is different in that they don't bundle, we bundle. And then there's various other manual docketing systems that are very prolific.
Great, thanks. Mary?
Much like what Ben said, it's the attorneys that feel like we're replacing them instead of freeing up their time to do something that clients actually feel good about paying for. And almost every attorney that we speak to, if you ask them how many hours they write off, it's a lot. So we do have a cool new, if you go on our website, it's Traklight without a C. For law firms, there's a cute one of those videos, which I'm not showing tonight, which is the business of legal, that explains that. And we created that cartoon video because we have to explain so many times the value proposition and the money, because I think it's something that should be taught a little bit more in law school around the business of running a law firm. You're shaking your head. Oh, I thought you were disagreeing.
No, they have no knowledge. Lawyers have no knowledge of business.
And then I just wanted to mention, to echo what Tony said around there's a lot of collaboration now in the legal tech community. And so even though some of us might in some ways compete with each other, I think there's a lot of collaboration, and hopefully I'll remember at the end to talk about the legal tech toolkit project that we're working on.
Yes. Okay, great. Thank you very much. So let's start our video demo. So we asked panelists to actually prepare video demos just because, time is precious. And so everyone has had 2 minutes to demo his product or her product on a video. So let's get that started.
Yeah, so what we're going to do is there's a couple, I think it's just Nicole and I, that's why we're sitting on the end, that are going to talk with our videos. Everyone else has submitted videos that just talk. So
all right, so Ned's going to go first? Or Ned's video is first.
eBrevia is making legal due diligence more efficient and accurate. We know the process well. Some might say too well. Early in their careers, our founders went from pulling all-nighters in a law school dorm to pulling all-nighters at corporate law firms, conducting due diligence in mergers, acquisitions, and financings. The due diligence process is always time-consuming and at times can be inaccurate. Until now. eBrevia's Diligence Accelerator is the tool that attorneys and other professionals need to conduct due diligence more efficiently and accurately. The software is based on artificial intelligence technology that we're commercializing from Columbia University. It analyzes a wide variety of legal documents and extracts key provisions and concepts based on user specifications. Results are displayed instantly in a user-friendly format. Our Diligence Accelerator fits naturally within an attorney's workflow and processes documents in seconds. It captures complex concepts that are located throughout a contract much more comprehensively than simple keyword searches. Learning from experience, the software gets smarter and smarter the more users work with it. Over time, it adapts to meet the specific needs of individual attorneys and practice groups. The system is web-based, so there's nothing to install. It's easy to use and secure, so attorneys and other professionals can begin working right away without training. And this is just the beginning. We will offer additional products in contract management, compliance, drafting, and consumer applications. Sign up for a free trial today.
Casetext is a legal research website where lawyers can find and read legal texts annotated by the legal community. It allows you to quickly find specific cases or conduct sophisticated search queries on our growing database of more than 2 million primary legal documents. The clean design helps you efficiently find the best results to your searches. Sort results by relevance, date or site count, or filter by jurisdiction or topic. Searches also retrieve attorney-generated posts and annotations, helping you benefit from the knowledge of the legal community. We've developed features that help users get smarter, faster, by highlighting the most important elements in legal documents linked to relevant secondary analysis. On the case page, the heat map helps you identify what's most important in a matter of seconds by showing you which pages of the opinion have been cited the most. Quick facts summarize key holdings, while recites identify what judges have said about the case in subsequent decisions. Legal briefs are linked to the cases they cite, so you can see how other attorneys have applied the case in practice. For a case's subsequent treatment, we consult WeCite, our community-sourced citator. You'll also find case annotations added by other lawyers linked to highlighted passages in the case. If you're accessing Casetext from a law firm with a premium membership, internal work product will be linked to relevant cases and statutes on a secure, collaborative platform, bringing the full weight of your firm's expertise to every lawyer at the firm. Casetext community pages are an online meeting place for lawyers with similar interests and practice areas. The interactive platform lets you read and contribute legal analysis linked to the relevant cases and statutes in the research platform. All posts and annotations are linked to users' real identities, so you know the background and expertise of each contributor. Profile pages spotlight your professional background and practice areas, helping you connect with colleagues and clients alike. By bridging the gap between legal research and existing knowledge, Casetext brings users the best legal content linked to the primary legal documents they need, annotated and discussed by the legal community. Casetext. Legal research smarter together.
So this is the Traklight one, and I have to tell you what's happening because our demo video is over 5 minutes, and since I set the 2-minute maximum, I couldn't very well break it. So here we go. So our platform allows attorneys to set up, to direct their clients either using, this is an iframe or a custom branded landing page, so that they are sending their clients to us, but their clients won't get lost with us. This is what our questionnaire looks like. We've made it very simple. It's all questions that an entrepreneur will feel comfortable asking about. The only thing there's only one area which talks about existing IP, and if you don't know what it is, you can skip it. It's all check all the apply, so if you have nothing in that area, you can fly right through. You're able to bounce around and go back. You can add as many in any of the existing IP ideas or brand IP or secrets as you need to. We split out brand IP because so many startups don't understand that if they don't have if they don't have patents, they still do have IP. This is the IP strategy report that the client gets, and this is education for the client that you can find out on the USPTO. We've just created a simple way of displaying it for them. This is for the attorney, and it is everything, all the Q&A that somebody has put in there and can be used to triage, and it's basically lead generation for the attorney. We also, as I mentioned, have time-stamped encrypted storage. This allows the attorney and the entrepreneur to safely share within what we call our vault system their information. It also allows people to put notes on the files, and we have a verification, so if you wanted to use this as an inventor's notebook, you could. We have additional versions that are like electronic file storage and also right up to a data room. This is an example of what the verification looks like. These are our new reports that came out just last week, and we call this the Carfax for investors, and it's a way of the attorney knowing, the entrepreneur knowing if they have any problems or not. So that is it.
LawGives is a platform technology for the online delivery of legal services. The legal profession is changing. Imagine a future where as lawyers we have freedom to choose what to work on and who we work with. LawGives is a platform to make it easy for the best and brightest lawyers to scale their impact together. We designed the LawGives platform for those lawyers to build long-term trusted relationships with each other and with the clients and communities that matter to them, so that online marketing becomes more like just doing what they love, helping people. With our partners, we're building the largest online collection of standardized unbundled legal service offerings. We call these offerings packages. Lawyers can select any package to offer. Our advanced triage system helps manage client requests, categorizing them and notifying lawyers in our community who are well suited to offer the requested service. Lawyers can choose to respond or can skip the request with a click of a button, helping us to learn what kinds of opportunities each lawyer is seeking. Email and SMS notifications mean that lawyers can be hyper-responsive. Flat fee packages have proven to be a great way for our lawyers to demonstrate their expertise and earn the trust of clients. It's easy to then transition a new client onto monthly retainers and other fee arrangements. Now here's the best bit. The whole LawGives platform is now available for lawyers, law firms, and legal service networks to reproduce for themselves, to build their own communities of practice. We're ready to help lawyers build their own brands, true to their own identities and their own values. Using LawGives, any lawyer can set up their own online storefront to offer flat-fee unbundled legal services. Using LawGives, any lawyer can invite partners to join and build a trusted community of practice together. Using LawGives, any lawyer can connect into a world of rewarding work opportunities, curated through the broader LawGives network. Go to lawgives.com to learn more and to build your own community of practice and help make trusted, affordable legal services universally accessible.
Meet Ellen, an associate at a large law firm. Ellen uses Ravel to conduct comprehensive legal research under tight deadlines. Ravel's intuitive, data-driven visualizations help her quickly identify the most relevant material, highlighting key cases as well as those hard-to-find ones that make her argument more compelling. As Ellen reads opinions, she relies on Ravel's unique page-by-page citation analysis to spot important passages and find other cases that interpret them. Ravel mines tens of millions of documents and data points to bring Ellen the most powerful strategic research information available, making her research faster, more focused, and more thorough. Ellen is discovering extraordinary results with Ravel. You can too.
Just a 1 minute video. 1 minute video.
It's like, wait, is there more?
Introducing Deal Manager, an advanced diligence management system for coordinating diligence reviews, including M&A, IPOs, financings, and bankruptcies. Through Deal Manager, deal coordinators assign review tasks to each attorney. Electronic diligence forms step attorneys through the diligence review process, ensuring consistent and accurate reviews. Our intelligent forms adapt depending on the type of agreement being reviewed. As the team completes their diligence tasks, the diligence dashboard updates to show real-time review progress. Our back-end database continuously monitors the deal and spots key issues identified through the review process. When it comes time to generate a diligence report or issues list, our patent-pending document generator goes to work, instantly creating reports on nearly any metric, allowing attorneys to instantly produce client-ready work product. Our sophisticated reports engine assembles diligence results from each attorney and across practice groups to create comprehensive, visually stunning reports complete with graphs, charts, tables, and statistics, all in a matter of seconds. With Deal Manager, attorneys can instantly compile their diligence results, saving days and sometimes weeks of time.
I didn't get the cool video memo, so this is the product. You log in with LinkedIn, your applications are preloaded, all the documents get loaded automatically, and they're loaded within seconds, so it's a really quick API. And then, again, we use another API, the Google API, so you get all of your dockets added to your calendar, personal calendar very quickly. Bundling actions, if you're a patent attorney, your docket system doesn't really give you that much flexibility with changing response dates. If you want to extend the date by 2 months, it's not easy to do, and here it's bundled, so you can just quickly do it and add it to your calendar. So new actions, pending actions, it's your inbox and outbox. All the documents are there, all of your clients and all of their applications are in one place, but you can filter them very easily. And then you can go into detail view. So all of pair in one screen. I mean, how magic is that? That's never really been an option. And in your docketing system. So again, access to every document, not just some. No one has had to sit there and upload them. It's all pulled in. That auto magic that we all ascribe to in life. And you know what my goal is for this is that we can then move from a docketing system, which used to be a very static environment, to something that you can use to quickly report out to your clients. But also, I envision a day when we can start to talk to each other about what's in these portfolios and hopefully make transactions over the site as well. The way billing works, it's a very modern SaaS self-service subscription. I'm not a salesperson, so I was like, well, we should just make it really, really easy for people to choose how often they want the data and for how much. So the range is $45 a month to $185 for someone who's using this as their only docketing system. And if you think about how much a docket clerk costs, $45,000 a year, sometimes $80,000, $185 a month starts to look pretty good. And so just a lot of filtering, a great AI movement. I wanted it to be visually interesting and easy for people. So check it out. If you want to see the upload process, that video is on the website, and that has a voiceover. But I think I'm going to use Tony's voice.
Yeah, was that you?
That was me.
Yeah. Oh, wow.
All right, well. So maybe as a quick follow-up question on your brief demos, could you let us know if you view your company's innovation as building a new technology, or is your innovation in using existing technologies to, to a particular legal process, bringing existing technology to a legal process? Ned, do you want to go first?
Sure. So we may be somewhat of a hybrid. We certainly didn't start from square one in that we're able to really leverage Columbia's technology and expertise, so that was helpful. We have done a lot of innovation within the company as well. And one of the big important pieces for our process is because it's a machine learning technology, we have to constantly train it on thousands of examples. So we have some highly skilled attorneys that have basically gone through and annotated thousands of contracts that we've downloaded from the SEC website, which we use to train the technology.
All right. Thank you. Jake.
So in our case, I think we borrowed a lot of concepts from other parts of the technology world, including crowdsourcing, text and analysis and text parallelization, and data science. But we had to make most of the technology on our own. We found that a lot of the stuff you can just get off the shelf wasn't really perfect for legal. So we hired some very good engineers from Google and IBM who have kind of in-house baked some pretty sophisticated technology, and that's, I think, a large part of the work that goes on behind the scenes is making the new technology for ourselves work for law.
Great, thank you, Tony.
I think it's also a hybrid approach. There's a lot of technology such as the natural language processing we use around the advanced triage system I mentioned to make sure that the opportunities are going to the right lawyers. That has all been applied in other industries before, but we are using it with a legal lexicon in a new way. There are aspects around the way that we've structured the distributed community system to allow for the right opportunities to be going to the right communities, which also, in a way, is part of that same process of reapplying existing technology in the legal space. One of the, I think, interesting innovations that we haven't seen really anywhere else is the different kinds of communities that we can set up now. We embed certain system rules on both a business, a legal, and a technology basis, which can align in different ways to create different sorts of communities. We have competitive communities, which are essentially marketplaces to allow for sort of demand and supply to match to reduce costs. We also have collaborative communities, which are more suited for the legal aid organization partners that we work with, and also law firms, where you want the suppliers on the supply side of a particular community to be working together. And so that's certainly not something that we've seen in many other different industries, but it applies particularly in the legal space, given what I was saying earlier about how the legal system isn't really totally about competitive market forces. We think there's a lot of potential for collaboration and working together towards common causes to create greater commons within the legal system more generally, and that's really what a lot of the communities that we're seeing set up are geared towards as well.
Thank you, Daniel.
Yeah, I mean, we take advantage of existing technologies when we can in terms of cloud hosting and languages and all that, but we've had to do a lot of R&D and development of our own technologies on machine learning and data science. So we have over half of our engineering team has either a PhD or a master's, and we have several patents pending. So there just hasn't been a lot that we can take totally off the shelf.
I would say the same thing. We've tried to take as much commercially available software as we can, but that's only taken us so far. So we've had to home grow a lot of our technology, and reporting engine is a good example to get the product that we think that attorneys will want. I will say that we are also selling a process, and that's a very difficult thing to do, particularly to lawyers who are technologically adverse. So we're selling them not just the technology, but a whole new way of doing corporate diligence. And so that is a stumbling block. But once attorneys get past that, then they love our product. But I would say that we've invented a new process, and that's the most difficult part of it.
We're automating an existing process, and we're applying tried and true marketplace dynamics and technology. But what this is allowing us to do is to capture data going through our system and develop new matching algorithms to develop proprietary technology and help match people in a way they've never been matched before in legal staffing.
Combination of technologies. So API technology has been around for a while, but everything had to be kind of tailored and customized for this use. So that was challenging. And I think, plugging into like things like Google Calendar API and bulk exports, like those are things that are available, not truly innovative. I think where I spent most of my money and time with design, just like really fluid, easy design and speed of processing. So that was hard.
So we have a cloud storage type application. It's very similar to the Dropboxes and Boxes, but it's different in that we came up with some of this timestamping verification. All of our code was scrapped and rewritten over the painful 7-month period that when we relaunched in March. The entire questionnaire, it's got whatever you want to call them, algorithms or whatever. We have patents pending. We'll see whether since they're software patents, we'll see how that all plays out, thanks to Alice and others cases. But a lot of our secret sauce is that our programming, we only hire programmers in our VP technology that have security and programming background. And so that's really important to us, and that's why we scrapped a lot of the things that we had and spent a lot of times on our permissions, and we don't use a big network cloud provider like Amazon or whatever. There's nothing wrong with those. We just have a proprietary way of working with our data to make sure that it's really secure. But we are just automating the process of sitting with a client, and like what Ben said, it's really hard if people don't embrace technology. They think that you're trying to replace them with it rather than enhance the experience and free them up for high-value legal work.
All right, thank you very much. So this next one is whoever wants to answer it. So, so what trends in the legal industry today make it ripe for disruption, or is it ripe for disruption? Ned, you want to go first?
Sure. So yeah, I think there's really a push towards value and efficiency in the legal industry today. And it's interesting, a lot of our users have been very candid with us about the pushback they're getting from clients, particularly with regard to some of this junior associate work. So you have clients that are willing to spend the $900 an hour for the partner, but maybe not the 3 to 5 for the junior associate. And I think you're starting to see a lot of symptoms of this. And some of this probably ties in well with what Julia's doing. There's more contract attorneys being used, more staff attorneys. You're seeing some of this low-level work being outsourced to low-cost U.S. jurisdictions or even India, and more flat fee arrangements as well. So I think we're at a point where it's somewhat of a buyer's market, and leverage has definitely moved in the client's direction.
Great. Anyone else wants to
take
this one? Jake?
I think you're seeing actually a lot of the same things happening in litigation. Not 5 years ago, big litigation departments, if you wanted to charge your clients for the time you spent on Lexis and Westlaw, and charge your clients for every search that you did, and for every, it used to be that Westlaw and LexisNexis would charge you $100 to do a search as a lawyer, and the lawyer can pass on those bills to their clients. And right around 2008, when the economy collapsed, clients started looking for places to cut what they would and would not spend money on. And one of the first places to go was spending money on Westlaw and LexisNexis. And so all of a sudden you have firms who cared about people being efficient, who cared about the process not taking forever, and for using so many of these $100, $50 searches. And I think that's one of the really important factors that's led to disruption being possible in Westlaw and LexisNexis. I mean, it used to be that firms would consider legal research a profit center because they would charge their clients in some cases even more than what they end up paying at the end of the day to Westlaw and LexisNexis, and that's just no longer true at most firms. So there's definitely an opening there. That's why you're seeing companies like Ravel, Judicata, and us saying, again, there's an opportunity for a new company to take at least a piece of what they're doing away from them.
That's interesting. And I don't know if you guys saw that, but Microsoft has just recently entered the legal tech space by acquiring Israeli e-discovery company eBrevia. So that's an interesting turn of events, I think. So anyone else wants to?
Yes, we've noticed, going along with that, we've noticed a huge turning point in the last 6 months. So we've been selling since 2010, and we got hung up on, sworn at. Nobody wanted to talk to us for a couple of years. And very recently, it's been to the point where law firms are finally realizing that they are going to die if they don't, if they don't listen to their clients and start becoming efficient. So we're at the point now where clients are calling us to help them with RFPs and help them find ways to do legal work more efficiently. And this is, if you would have told me even 1 year ago that this would be happening, I would have told you were crazy. So it's really, we're really right now at an inflection point. Great.
I just wanted to add that I came up with this idea in 2010, and when I talked to attorneys then, we were just focused initially on IP only and initially on the entrepreneurs. And then over time, as we realized it was legal technology, I agree with Julia, in the last 6 months, it's really changed from, oh, you're trying to replace me, to, oh, okay, I get this. So this will allow me to, make my first meeting more efficient or whatever. And it's just this idea also has come into it that attorneys really want to collaborate and cross-sell to each other. So even though it might uncover matters that are to do with something else other than IP, I think the legal community itself is trying to be more collaborative between the different disciplines. I'm talking about this, not the big firms, but I'm talking about the smaller firms. So I think it's a survival.
Great, thank you. All right, so this one's for those who were attorneys and then turned legal tech entrepreneurs. So what is it like to transition from attorney to legal tech entrepreneur? Ned.
I'll have to sit over there next time. No. Yeah, so I think just a few thoughts. I mean, as a entrepreneur, you're certainly wearing more hats, and I'd also say that instead of just looking to reduce risk and identify risk, you're looking for opportunities and to take calculated risks. One of the things that's probably not so true out here on the West Coast, but is on the East Coast. I know when I told some of my friends and family that I was no longer going to be practicing law and was becoming an entrepreneur, I had some folks kind of scratching their heads a bit. So there's kind of that social aspect too. But yeah, just a few thoughts.
Yeah, expect everything to be completely different. I think it's probably the most opposite thing you can do from being a lawyer in a lot of really big ways. I mean, I guess I neglected to say this during my talk, but I'm also a Stanford Law grad. I graduated from here in 2010, and I clerked. I practiced for a few years, and I'd actually go a step beyond what Ned said. It's not about taking calculated risks. At law firms and in the practice of law, you are necessarily supposed to avoid risk. That is like really important part of your job. You have to be like risk-seeking to be an entrepreneur. There is a greater than likely chance your company will probably fail, and you have to take very big bets on the future that is extremely uncertain about product decision choices, about who to hire, all of those things. It's a lot of it's about risk, about placing big bets, and about trying to predict things out of the future with very little evidence and to ignore precedent, which also is extremely hard because sometimes, as an ex-lawyer, right, you're trying to create something new, and so precedent's important. It's important to look to the companies that succeeded and failed before you, but sometimes you have to say, if Steve Jobs is maybe a bad analogy, if Steve Jobs had said like, oh well, there is no successful tablet right now, so I'm not going to release the iPad, we would be less an iPad in this world, and so you have to just take a risk and go out there and make something new.
That's a great point. Anyone else? Tony?
So I was a corporate lawyer for 5 years. I actually enjoyed being a lawyer. It was really challenging. I was doing technology law, licensing. I was totally geeking out on the data protection side of things. But what was different, I think, about becoming an entrepreneur was you look at things very, very differently. I was fortunate to have a 6-month deep dive into design thinking at the design school with David Kelly and Bill Burnett here at Stanford. And they really sort of taught one of these core entrepreneurial skills, which is empathy. You have to really sort of look between the lines when you're talking to people about their problems, and you have to put yourself in their shoes in a way that lawyers supposedly are trained to do. But I found that my legal training often led me to look at things through a particular lens, and you often sort of get blinkered. As an entrepreneur, you can't afford to do that. You have to be open. You have to be willing to listen and consider all different sides, all different disciplines, and look at problems in entirely new ways as opportunities. I think, as Jake was saying, you see opportunity when there is suffering. You look for ways that you can create and encourage human flourishing, because ultimately entrepreneurs want to make the world better. And I think lawyers do as well. And I think there is a continuum between where we can bring the practice of law into a more entrepreneurial state. So I don't think it's an either or, but I certainly did feel the change in waking up every morning not quite knowing what was going to be happening, and also the ups and downs. I think being a lawyer is a lot more steady. As my co-founder Peter will attest to, oftentimes he's sort of wanted to wring my neck with his hands because we're having a bad day, and sometimes it's just about putting a smile on your face and saying, okay, let's just go for a walk, let's talk this out, because it is. I mean, you're in this cauldron together, you're in this crucible, and everything feels like it's so important. It's like the biggest bets of your life you're taking, and it's a roller coaster, but I wouldn't have it any other way.
That's great. Anyone else? Ben?
Well, I would say that it hasn't been quite as jarring for me, because we're not leaving the legal practice to do something completely removed from the law. So I feel like in my company, I was just able to take a process and a technology that I invented, and instead of applying it to one firm that I might have worked at, I can now apply it to infinite number of firms. So I feel that I'm, in a way, doing the same job I did in a firm, particularly when we have a lot of deals hitting on our system, and we have our clients, our customers calling saying, oh, we need individual customizations, or we have this acquisition that's going to span 7 countries, and we've got 40 associates working on it. You kind of feel like you're also in the deal itself. So in a way, I feel like I'm doing almost the same job when I'm in a deal that I did when I was in a law firm, just on a much grander scale.
I would agree that you use a lot of the same skill sets. I think a lot of things that you learn in law school and practicing law do equip you really well to be an entrepreneur. Depending on what kind of law you practice, the stakes are really high. You can be dealing with people's families, with their health, with tort litigation. So you have really high stakes, and you become very emotionally involved in your cases if you're a lawyer in certain types of law. When you're an entrepreneur, the stakes are really high. It's a lot of pressure. And one thing I've noticed about lawyers, and if you can get through law school and pass the bar, you are good at getting stuff done. You know there's a challenge. You know you have to meet it. You will stay up all night for 3 nights if that's what it takes. And that's also what it takes to be an entrepreneur. So if you've been a lawyer with a hectic schedule, entrepreneurship might be a little bit easier for you than it is for other people that are from cushier work backgrounds.
There you go. All right. So with that, why don't we just turn it over to the audience for some questions? If you have questions, and you could walk up to the microphone here, that'd be great. If there are no questions, I'll just keep asking questions, but we want to avoid that. So maybe John.
I think you have to.
I think all of you have raised capital, so I'm curious how that went, and whether you think investors, by and large, venture investors or angel investors, have started to identify legal technology as a particular space. Now, clearly, take social networking. If you go to most major venture websites, there will be a social networking category. Thank you, Facebook, and the number of companies that have come out of that as an identifiable space. So I'm curious what kind of challenges you had in raising capital and identifying investors and educating them about the legal industry. Do you think there's still a lot of work to be done? Or do you think that now investors are starting to identify this as a particular industry space that they're interested in? And if they haven't, how do we make that happen?
I'll take a whack at that. So we raised our first round of funding 2 years ago, and we were actually very fortunate. It was a pretty easy process. We got approached by a big venture capital firm, by a partner who had a JD MBA from Harvard, and he understood the legal space and he got it. And we quickly had a term sheet from him and then spent the summer raising money, and it was pretty easy in that they approached us. But at the same time, when we were out talking with other firms and seeing who else was out there, it became clear that there was not necessarily broad interest in the space. There were folks who, if they didn't have a legal background, they didn't understand the pain points, and they didn't, it wasn't something that they could take home and show their family, and that was a turnoff for them. I think in the subsequent 2 years, it continued to be clear that there was growing interest in it. I think there's more venture capital firms that have people looking into the space. There's a fair number of partners and associates at these firms that have legal backgrounds, but not all of them do. And so I think it depends on a firm-by-firm basis. And I think you could look at a site like AngelList and see that sort of numerically the number of startups in the legal space sort of writ large is growing. But I think there's still some hesitation in the venture world based on old stereotypes about how firms buy things, about the difficulties of selling into the space, about the intransigence of lawyers. So it's not a gold rush yet in the space for
You would
sure.
call those old stereotypes?
Yeah, old and sort of living stereotypes.
I
Yeah.
think that, John, you are the answer to getting people more interested. John's a partner at Oric, and one thing that investors have told us they hate about law is the long sales cycle. And we've seen some of our legal tech companies fold because they got venture funding, and then the investors wanted to see something in 12 months, and the sales cycle is about that long at a law firm. So law firms being co-partners with us in innovation and not taking quite as long to make decisions and go through sales cycle, I think is a huge part of how law firms are going to see legal tech companies survive and get funding and make their lives better.
Right, I think that's a wonderful point. I was just going to ask Daniel also as a follow-up question. There's this first seed round that many companies in the legal tech space were able to get, but then getting sort of that follow-on funding, that venture funding, as Julia just pointed out, might be really difficult because long sales cycles and so on and so forth. So there's a question here, Manik.
Thanks, Roland. Appreciated the demos and the presentations, guys. I had a question about a kind of broader theme that's come up in a couple of different contexts from different folks around kind of competition versus collaboration. And I'm asking this in the context of the legal tech ecosystem that's emerging. I'm building a small legal tech company right now on the East Coast. We are based in Boston and have a small presence in SF. How do you guys see the potential for collaboration across both process-driven innovation and technical-driven innovation in the legal tech space? Be curious to hear if there's ideas or attempts now to kind of bridge across the different approaches that all of you are taking, which are all clearly interesting and are proving successful in their own siloed regards, but whether you see that kind of potential emerging across the ecosystem.
Okay, so this is a perfect lead-in. Thank you, and nice to meet you. We have a project. Jules and I met earlier this year, and we started talking about how we need to have more collaboration. Jules has, along with Julia, these legal tech meetups in New York, and we started talking about how it would be great if we could cross-sell with each other. And I know Ned introduced me to several law firms, and we're trying to pull each other into the different law firms. So we're trying to formalize it a little bit more. We have a project called the Legal Tech Toolkit, which I did Google and search to make sure we're not infringing on anything. But the idea is that we're going to put together some collateral, some materials, and there might be people that compete with each other in there, but it's a big enough space. There's enough lawyers. Back to John's question, we've dealt with the whole legal tech piece by also trying to sell to investors and trying to sell to different markets, and we're also dealing with the entrepreneurs. So with the legal tech piece, it's really a focus on how can we all work together to succeed, and it's just basic math. If I'm out at a firm and this has happened, somebody says to me, oh, well, this is really cool, so my entrepreneurs or my emerging ventures are gonna fill this in, but I wanna be able to take the information that's in your Excel spreadsheet or in your database, and I want to be able to put it into some system the firm already has, or I want to do docketing, or I want to do something like that. Well, then I need to know on the tip of my tongue, oh yeah, well you should talk to so-and-so, or we've built an API with such and such a firm. So that was kind of the impetus. That's not a good word for me to try to say at this time. That was the genesis of the idea. And so if you are a legal tech company out there and you're interested, we're taking we have a series of questions that we're taking from people. We're going to put up a page, and we're each going to link to it. We're going to blog about it. I write for Forbes, so I'm going to write about this and announce the legal tech toolkit, because I think the more technology there is, the more adoption there will be. And we're looking at some of the leaders here and, Lex Machina, to pull us along, some of the smaller companies, because the long sales cycle, it's a killer.
Yeah, I mean, so we've been talking about this. We've heard it from several of the panelists that, selling into the law firms is really, really difficult. So what can you share in terms of tactics or nuts and bolts of, what works and what doesn't work? Sometimes it seems easiest to just, hire a very junior person just out of college to, making cold calls and stuff like that. But that might be a turnoff for many lawyers, right? Because they want to talk to somebody, who's a lawyer. So any kind of insights anyone
I'll
wants
share
to share?
one of my tips is that if you can either get your email system to send out your emails on Saturdays and Sundays, or if you can work Saturday morning, I've received the most hits back when I try to reach out to attorneys on the weekend. Because during the week, they're busy with clients. They don't want to hear from me or others, or maybe just me.
You could also go to the kids' soccer games and.
Well, that would be stalking. There's a line. You try to stay on that.
Okay.
But
Right.
I think part of why the sales cycle is slow is also a bit of an opportunity. It's partly slow because there's a lot of different decision makers and stakeholders. Right. There's librarians and partners and associates. Sometimes there's a CIO or a COO. But that also means that there's a lot of different sources from which information is percolating into the firm. And so, just last week I was introduced to the head of research at a AmLaw 20 firm and spoke with her yesterday. And we got on the phone and we did some introductions, and she was like, Daniel, it's actually really good timing that you're reaching out to me and that we've connected, because I'm preparing a presentation to our executive committee about new technologies, and Ravel's a big part of that. And I said, well, great, what do you know about us? Because she had been doing all of this research and sort of things had been percolating into the firm without us ever having spoken with her. So I think it's an interesting opportunity, as those there's a lot of different people in the firm world who have their eye on new developments and care about bringing technology into the space.
It's actually the first time I hear somebody, express a positive or give a positive spin to the fact that there's so many decision makers at firms.
The other positive is if you have a really bad meeting or you bomb out with somebody, a lot of law firms have a lot of silos. So, then that office might be off base for you, but you can just go find another office and find another champion. That's another silver lining.
I was going to say that's very true. I mean, we find that partners within the same firm are extremely competitive. And at some particular firms, large firms that we've dealt with, some partners want to be secretive about the technology, and they don't want to share it with their fellow partners. And so you enter this political minefield sometimes when you're selling to a law firm. We only sell enterprise, and we sell only to very large law firms. So we constantly enter these bizarre political battles within. And I've been on some calls where there's, our office needs to get this first. No, our office does. And then it comes down to what partner's pulling in more money for the firm. So it's very, very strange market to be selling.
So next time you have a meeting with an ORIC partner, just say, hey, John Bautista is using Wizdocs. It's going to close it.
I think also, a lot of the products that you're trying to sell to law firms, you can sell them to in-house groups at companies, and sometimes in-house groups are much more amenable to trying new things and cutting costs and have far less, bureaucratic channels to go through. Whereas, for some reason, the law firms and lawyers have incredibly complex processes to come to decisions.
Okay, any questions? Yeah, go ahead. Oh, you got it? Okay.
Hey, I thought it was interesting that some of the panelists had raised outside capital and some had kind of grown organically. And I thought I would just ask how the experience has been for those companies that have raised outside capital. Did that kind of change your growth? Did it accelerate it in the way you anticipated? Were there any kind of things you wish you knew at the point at which you decided to pull the trigger and bring in outside investment? And then perhaps for those who did not do that, was that a choice that you made? And feel good about? Do you think that the decision to grow organically, was successful for you? So just kind of a little bit of discussion on that. I'd appreciate it. Thanks for your time.
Sure. So we raised about $1.8 million in venture financing about a little less than a year ago, and the experience actually was pretty positive. To answer your question, did it accelerate our growth? Yes, absolutely. It allowed us to hire top tech talent who, they're engineers, although they are cheaper at the startup phase because they believe in the mission and they're doing part of it for equity. It's still expensive to hire engineers. There's no doubt about that. And if you want to build something big and hard, sometimes you need capital for that. And there's actually a nice side effect to raising money from venture capitalists, which is you're not just getting money from them. It's not just capital, but good investors help you a lot too. And they are, not invested only through their checkbooks, but also they will check in with you regularly in a good way, not annoying ways if they're good. And they'll give you a lot of great advice. They'll connect you to people who are useful. They'll help you raise future rounds of financing. So it's a kind of a gift that keeps on giving. And that was an unanticipated benefit from doing it, but ended up being a really very positive experience.
Any more questions here?
First of all, you guys are innovating, and I think that's great. And several of you have talked about how you're going up against some very deeply entrenched competitors that are very large companies. I'm curious if any of you that have been operating for a number of years have seen any type of a backlash or a response, maybe products that are coming out that are in reaction to what you're doing to their business.
I think we killed a couple staffing agencies in Philadelphia where we started because they could not compete with their margins, just with their infrastructure and their bureaucracy. So their response was not to try to do something with technology, but was to reduce their workforce and make everyone share an office. And everyone started quitting and leaving. So we definitely moved the market and the pricing, at least in Philadelphia. And I think we have helped the demise or the downward spiral of a couple of our competitors in our market.
I would welcome somebody to come up with something similar to what we do, because I think competition is actually a really good thing. We have seen, there was a startup recently in Asia that was talking all about how it's very important for startups to protect their intellectual property. So every time somebody writes about how important it is for a startup at the very beginning to get on their IP strategy, I'm excited. I'm happy about that. Because I think it's validation, but it's also bringing the issue to the forefront, which is what we need for our company.
And one thing to add, I guess, is it's interesting competing against very, very large entrenched companies, because in order for them to compete with, say, like what Dan's doing with data analytics, or what we're doing with crowdsourcing and community sourcing content, for Westlaw and LexisNexis to do that, they'd have to change almost everything about the way they do things. And it's really, really hard to change an internal management structure. So if they wanted to become free like we are, and get the context added to cases and statutes the way that we do it, they would literally have to lay off major divisions, entire levels of management. And it may happen, right? I mean, we haven't seen any of that yet, but it may happen. But those kinds of changes are so entrenched and so difficult that you see these things usually happening very slowly.
So I think that's a good segue to a question I wanted to ask you, which is, what's the trajectory you see for your company? What's a good exit strategy, right? So in the old days of legal technology, there was only Thomson and Lexis as potential acquirers. We're still waiting for that big legal tech IPO. We're just talking about it. It's going to happen, but it hasn't happened yet. So. And Eddie left already from Eddie Hartman, founder of LegalZoom. So, what are you thinking? What's your strategy? So,
I mean, the preferred thing is to IPO. That'd be amazing, because that's where you get to the point where, of course, we're paying back the investors who entrusted us with their capital. But at the same time, I think we can build a very big, sustainable business. It's currently around $8 billion, from what I understand, is being spent on legal research every year. It's a pretty enormous market. And we believe that at least our technology can even scale beyond the law someday. The idea of taking primary source, texts and annotating them with the knowledge of the broader industry, could apply to medicine, financial, records. And I think, we believe, a lot of why I got into this is because I just love legal research. I love the law, and I love working on this kind of stuff. And as a coder, I love this kind of cool. But another part is I think that there's a potential for a very big business here. And we actually don't spend too much time worrying about who the acquirer is and more time worrying about how do we build a good, sustainable business.
There's a question over there.
Are any of you engaging in interlingual legal space, multilingual legal space, in thinking about growth, expansion, other markets, and your technology? Nicole, in particular, yours seems perhaps quite transferable, perhaps yours as well, or
Every day I get an email from somebody from another country saying, hey, when's Casetext coming to India? When's Casetext coming to Australia or England? And I don't think we're going to get there very soon. I mean, my most recent call was with a group of Hungarian constitutional law scholars who are interested in annotating the vast field of Hungarian constitutional law that has apparently started only a few decades ago after the fall of the Soviet Union. So I think there's an opportunity there. Part of the challenge is two things. A lot of different legal systems, unlike here, the law is actually, it's called, I think, Queen copyright or something like that, where the law itself you cannot use without permission from the Queen. Yeah. So that makes it a little bit hard to do. Another one of the challenges is we've built technology around, to some degree, the U.S. legal system, the way that cases cite each other, how precedent forms over time. For some common law countries like England, Australia, basically everywhere that England colonized, that actually works out pretty well. But if for the Chinese legal system or the German legal system, it may not map as well there.
Anyone else?
Oh, so Europe, the European Patent Office just put $10 million into this new. They're reinventing their entire database system and their workflow system, and it's amazing to see what they're coming out with. So for me to go and grab their API and pay like $10,000 a year is super easy, and it's fantastic. So in that regard, doing this in the United States first was actually much harder because the USPTO here has actually cut its funding to its technology that it uses. So, same stuff, same CAPTCHA, same pairs, same unstructured data. It's so bad. But yeah, so in that respect, like for CodeX's IP to really scale in Europe, and then even China has really good data systems coming out. So, yeah.
Any more questions from the audience? Ansel.
So two questions. So one, what kind of wheels are each of you guys maybe reinventing? I know for the legal research focused ones, you guys have to buy a lot of data, clean a lot of data, crawl a lot of data. So what's being done multiple times by each of you guys, and do you think there's any opportunities to collaborate together on that? And the second one is what raw materials are you missing in terms of R&D from universities, or what else do you need, big picture?
That's a good question. I mean, in the legal research space, the wheel has already been reinvented about 12 times. Like, there's been half a dozen companies that have already digitized case law, produced it. They're still doing that today. I know Westlaw and Lexis and Bloomberg all talk about whether they should create a clearinghouse where they're already collaborating about legal case materials. It's frustrating to have to do that. I think the bigger picture and the thing that got me excited about the space is that the courts and the government are starting to catch up a bit, as you know, and it's still a patchwork out there, but I think if you look ahead to 5 or 10 years from now, hopefully access to the raw primary materials is going to be much easier than it is today, and today it's a lot better than it was 3 years ago. So there's a real window of opportunity to build companies around information that's becoming much more accessible, like a Kayak or Zillow, which are built on publicly available information. So it's a frustrating wheel that is still having to be reinvented, but I think it's a smaller wheel every couple of years.
Just to talk a little about the raw materials coming out of universities, I think human talent is one of the really interesting ones. we're talking about an ecosystem here of lawyers who are becoming increasingly tech savvy. And I think that raw material in terms of sheer human potential is something that we all want to see more of. We want to see that being plugged into the broader legal system to make it more efficient and more accessible. In terms of what wheels that will lead to us reinventing or helping to reinvent, a big part of it is about how we end up getting the work that we want to do. I think if we look at the ways in which law firms have traditionally marketed themselves or acquired clients, I think that's going to be completely reinvented over the next 5, 10, 15 years as we see lawyers as these trusted intermediaries recognized for the trust that's placed in them. As we move into the increasingly connected world, we're going to have that information about each individual lawyer, what they have done, what are their values, which are the communities and organizations that they associate with. That is going to be increasingly more available. We're going to move beyond the directories, which is just about a name and a list of reference clients, and it's going to be much more fine-grained data.
I would say that with our company, we're trying to get attorneys to not reinvent the wheel. It seems that every time a new deal is opened up at a law firm, they've lost all the background from doing prior deals. Even at the largest law firms that we're installed in, you'd be surprised how many of these large law firms don't even have checklists for when they review a real estate lease or a vendor agreement or a customer agreement. And if they do, they differ between offices and between partners. And so what we're trying to do with our application is really work with their knowledge management kind of committee to go in there and say, hey, look, when we open up a deal, here's the minimum that should be done. And when we review a real estate lease, here's what should be looked for so that we can simultaneously increase quality control but also train junior associates. So I think for us, we're trying to prevent law firms from reinventing the wheel and kind of being perpetuating that inefficiency.
Great. So I have another question. So we talked a little bit about the sales and marketing challenges and also the funding challenges. We covered all that, but we really didn't talk very much about potential technology challenges. So my question is, have you, in building your business, come to the point where you felt like, wow, it'd be really cool to do that, but we can't because the technology questions haven't been resolved yet. So anyone encounter that point, or
technology at our customers, or
no, technology in building your business actually?
But we did reach that point, and so then we had to scrap everything, and we kept it all up and live during the time. But the technology that we had implemented, there was a mistake made with using Mongo as a database, and it wasn't the right database, so we had to redo everything. And the code that was created wasn't secure enough. So that's a painful process, but it's one of those things that ultimately it's a technology company. It's a software platform. So that's where as much as there's great things about thought leadership and marketing and pretty websites and everything, really that's not what sells a company. It should be that you have a robust and secure software platform. So that was our challenge, and that's what we ended up, we got a bank line and raised the money to do that, to build it properly with people in the United States who work for us full-time now, rather than trying to outsource outside the United States. It's a disaster. Okay. Was for us.
I'll say as a coder, not as a lawyer, as a coder, it's probably the best time ever. It's definitely the best time ever to be a developer. And there's just so many tools that have made your life so much easier than it was literally just a year or two ago. And sometimes I don't know if I feel there are sometimes we feel constrained by technology, and specifically some of the technologies that are on the cusp of getting really good, like machine learning, natural language processing, are like 85% of where they need to be in order for things to really work. Like I think that in 10 years, you'll be able to give an opinion to a computer, a Watson type computer, and it'll say, this opinion overruled this opinion. We know this for sure because the computer can read and understand the document. Right now, I don't know necessarily if the state of the art is even close, to be honest, because language is very tough. The way for computers' understanding of language is still far from where it can be. And that's probably one of the, in law, at least in legal research, one of the hardest parts.
of doing work here.
Thank you. All right. Well, if there's no final question, then please join me in thanking our panel.